In this tutorial, we're going to cover some of the basic tracing algorithms of Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so let's start off in Adobe Illustrator. I've gone ahead and made this gray bar. Basically, it starts out at white and ends in black. All right. Now, I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how the tracing mechanism works, first of all, because this is important when you understand how to select an image to trace. Okay. It's useful to trace an image if you want to convert it to vectors, because vectors can easily be blown up or shrunk down without losing any quality of the image. Okay, whereas if you're using a pixelated image, if you blow it up, you start seeing graininess in your image, and that's not what you're usually wanting. So let's go ahead. This is just a raster image that I've made. You can, if I zoom in, you can see the tiny pixels, each of them representing a various shade. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom back out. Okay. Now, if I click on this image, zoom out a little more. If I click on this image, you'll notice this menu bar changes up here. One of the options is Live Trace. Okay, so let's go to Live Trace. Now, right now I'm going to keep everything at default. Let's talk about the threshold really quickly. Now, you'll notice that my image before has various levels of black and white, okay, with gray in the middle. Now, anytime you go ahead and trace, what it's doing is it's basically going to convert your image, no matter the color, to grayscale. Okay, it's going to convert it to some level of black or white, okay, or a combination of the two. Now, when you go through and you trace that, after it converts it to that grayscale, it says, okay, if there are 255 different shades of black and white, which is basically the standard, then any shade that's about the halfway mark of 128 or below, I'm going to convert to black. Any shade that is above that, or 129 to 255, I'm going to convert to white. In case you're wondering, that's how it's working. So if I go ahead and say I set this value up higher, it's going to incorporate more of those lighter shades, and you're going to see our black bar move to the left, as it did there. Okay. Now if I go ahead and actually lower it to be below 128, let's say 78, it's going to shrink because it's going to be incorporating less levels of that shade. All right, and that's exactly what it does. So that's what the threshold is going to be doing. That's why it's best, if you're ever doing a tracing of an image, to make sure that you have the best contrast available, because the more contrast, the better it will be able to distinguish between the black and the white areas, and then the better your trace will be. Okay. So that's kind of how the trace is. Now let's go and actually do a real image. I went ahead and I copied an image that I found from Google Images. I just did a search for Singer sewing machines, and so let's go ahead and paste that image in. Alright, so here's our image. Let's go up to here to Live Trace. Okay, and here's kind of how it's turning out. And now we can adjust the threshold a little bit, to how you'd like it. Okay. I kind of like, let's see, I don't like having too much detail into it, because if you're cutting it out, then it's best to have kind of more of a solid image. Okay. I'm just going to actually crank it up a little bit more. There we go. I like that right there. Okay. And if you wanted to add Singer, it'd be easy. Just get some type and white, or add some white type right here that says Singer, and a few other embellishments to it. Okay. Now here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. First of all, you'll notice you're like, okay, I've gone ahead and traced it, and you click out of it, and you're thinking, okay, how do I edit it? I'm still kind of stuck in this tracing mode. Here's what you need to do. You have to hit expand. This is kind of like accept the changes. So hit expand. Okay. And now you'll notice there's my path right there. Okay. Let's also look a little bit more at this image. If you go ahead and click on this is my layers menu. You can go open it by going up to view or window, and then down to layers, and you can turn that on. You can take a look at what's inside your layers, and by actually selecting here this little circle, it will select that image. Okay. You'll notice it's actually gone ahead and also traced in some of these white paths. Okay, I've just going through and selecting them. There's a couple things you can do to get rid of them. You can actually click and drag this and drop it in the garbage. just to delete those layers. Or here's something else you can do. Before you hit the expand key, I just Control Z to undo what I've done. You can come up here to this tracing options dialog, and you can click this little check mark box to ignore white. So now if I hit ignore white and hit trace, you notice how that white background went away. Now I can click expand, and if I come back over here, it just shows my one shape, my Singer sewing machine. So that's something that you may want to keep in mind, just so you can go ahead and more easily trace those objects. Alright, let's do another image. Let's go and do a color image. Okay, let's go into edit. I've gone ahead and just found, I did a quick search for tiger clip art, and I went ahead and saved it, and let's import it. I just went into the file and then place, and this will let me place my object. Okay, so here's a quick image of a tiger I found. Now let's go up and do the live trace again. Okay, now this time, you know, you can go into presets and choose different areas of color, you know, kind of play around. These are all different ones that Adobe has put together. I kind of like going in and choosing my own options. I do the tracing options dialog box. Now this is kind of just a very simple options box for doing tracing. You can kind of play around with it, but since this is a basic tutorial, I don't want to get too much into it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and just do color 6. Okay, and what this does is basically it says, okay, I'm going to take the image and I'm going to find the 6 most common colors that I can find in it, and then I'm going to turn those into objects. Okay, so I'm going to do color 6. I'm going to actually make sure that my preview checkbox is on so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, you'll notice when I did that, if I zoom in, I'm going to hit trace for right now. If I zoom in, you'll notice you can see different colors. You know, 1, 2, 3. You have a little 4, and then this white is actually being included as a color 5, and so then there's another color in here as well that I'm not seeing. But you probably aren't going to want all those. However, we really want to make sure that we have that red mouth right there. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. I'm actually going to change my colors up. Make sure the preview checkbox is on, and I'm going to change it up until I can see that red mouth. There it is. Okay, so when I have 9 colors, I'm going to go ahead and click ignore white. Well, actually, in this case, yeah, let's ignore the white. Okay, so I'm going to hit trace. Okay, now here's the other thing. You have to remember to hit expand. Okay, and there's our image. Now what we have to do is we have to break this out of the group. You'll notice it's in the group. So I'm going to right click, click ungroup, and now all of my various shapes in this whole image came out. Okay, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can have a little bit more space to work with. Now you're probably thinking, okay, this is going to be a mess. Look at all these different shapes. Well, there's a couple things you can do. Let's go ahead and click the magic wand tool, and let's select like the orangish yellow color of the fur. Okay, I clicked the magic wand, I selected it, and now I've gone up and selected the direct selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag this out. There's our orange shape. I'm going to do the same thing with the red mouth. I'm going to choose the magic wand, click, and use the regular selection tool, the black arrow, and drag it out. You'll notice it found another little spot in the shape. That's okay. I'm just going to select it and delete it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, select the whole image, and I've opened up my Pathfinder palette. You can do this by going up to Window and coming down to Pathfinder to make sure it's selected. Okay, I'm going to choose the Unite command, and you'll notice it joined a lot of those various images. I'm going to actually do it again and see. Okay, so now it's actually gone through and joined a lot of those stray lines together. So that's actually looking pretty good. If you want to look a little bit more detail at it, which you will in this case, this image, it looks like there's some lines that are still kind of hanging out here. You can actually, if you click the direct selection tool, you can come in here and delete some of those lines out of the area, you know, just do a little bit of image editing. But that's looking pretty good. And so now what you do is you can go through and you can cut this section right here out of your black, and this section out of orange, and this section out of red, and then you can go through and piece them all back together however you'd like them to be. Okay, so that's just a quick little tutorial on how the tracing features can work inside the Adobe Illustrator. I hope that helps, and let me know if you have any questions, okay?